Today, I will show you how I make twice smoked Boudin. I smoked my Boston butt previously and had it in the refrigerator waiting to cook down to make the Boudin. I am now cutting up onions. I have bell peppers and green onions also that I will cut up and save for later during the cooking process. There's the green onions that I cut up previously and add them in with the bell peppers. Save that for later. There you see my Boston butt. I cooked it about 2 days ago. I say cooked it, I smoked it for about 3.5 hours. I smoked it at a temperature of about 200 degrees. You just saw a profile of the meat. It is not fully cooked. I only cooked it enough to get a good smoky flavor. The cooking process will be completed when I cook it, boil it in water in that big pot you see on the edge. I am cutting the steaks up into 1 to 2 inch cubes, and now I am attempting to get as much meat as possible off. However, save a little meat because you're going to put the bone in with the meat in the water as you're boiling it, and pull the bone out every so often to see if the meat comes off the bone easy. And when it does, you know that you have cooked the meat enough. That is, whenever the meat comes off the bone or easily comes off the bone, the meat is done. There's the meat. Put it on the stove high. Put enough water in there to cover the meat and let it cook. Here I am setting up my sausage press. It's a good little sausage press. It maybe a gallon at a time. Setting up my meat grinder. I bought a Browning meat grinder at Academy. It does real well for small jobs. There was a shot of the meat cooked down. I have already tested the meat coming off the bone, and now you see me removing the meat from the water. In this, I also skimmed as much oil off the top that had cooked down the fat from the meat. Also, when I added the meat, I added my chicken livers, so it cooked with the pork. There is the solution left, the broth and the meat. Now I'm adding my vegetables, and I cheated a little bit. I've got that seasoning blend. I added some more of that to the broth. Cooking it down. Here, while I'm cooking down the broth with the vegetables, I am setting up and I am getting ready to grind the pork and the liver to be able to mix in to make the Boudin. Here I am grinding the pork and the liver together into that stainless steel bowl in front of the grinder. You only need to grind this once. I have three grinder plates. I use the medium sized one. Make sure you get every little bit of meat. There, all of the meat is ground up and inside that mixing bowl. Taking the grinder apart, putting the pieces in the sink to clean. I try to keep our kitchen clean as much as possible as I'm going to. You will use a little bit of dishes and bowls, mixing bowls. Good old iced tea right there to drink. Here I'm setting up my sausage press. I've got the broth right there, adding the meat back to the broth after the vegetables are cooked down. Here you want to mix and you want to cook medium to medium high heat. Cook the broth and the meat together until it becomes a good consistency. I didn't think I had enough onions, so I added some more green onions to give it some color and give it some more flavor. Boudin you always have green onions in there. I didn't go overboard, but I did add more to give it some more flavor and color. But you want to cook this down till it has just about absorbed all of the water. If you leave it sit without stirring, the meat will sink toward the bottom and you should have about a half an inch of water above it, maybe between a quarter and a half inch. Continue to skim off the oil off the top to try to make it less greasy. Keep stirring it. In between these shots I did stir it to get a good consistency. Do not let it, you want to stir it so it doesn't stick to the bottom or cook on the bottom or burn. Cooking it down usually takes about 30 minutes or so, if not a little more, depending on how big of a batch you are making. This batch here, 1 Boston butt, 2 onions, also made 10 cups of rice ahead of time. There I'm tasting a little bit. Add your seasoning during this time to taste. It is very important. Before you finish cooking it, add it to taste. Here you see I'm mixing the rice and the meat mixture to the consistency that you want. I do tend to go a little meaty because I like a lot of meat in my gumbo and in my boudin. So I do go a little heavy on the meat. Your meat and broth solution will still be wet, so keep stirring that meat around to where you're getting juice with the meat as you're stirring it in with the rice. The rice will absorb moisture out of the meat. So don't cook the meat solution all the way down to where you have no water left or no juice left. Alright, so I've got my first bowl. I'm ready to start stuffing the sausage casing. I get the sausage casing at the local grocery store. There I've already started. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 sections of boudin already made. I had to swap around and get another batch of sausage casing. So you'll see the ones after this are a little smaller. There are a different batch of sausage casing. And coming up, there you go. You see that is called a hank. That one piece is called a hank. I've got it stuffed. I am now, you see where I have put the boudin in the smoker. I smoked that boudin on about 200 degrees for about 45 minutes to an hour. 175 to 200 degrees. There's the final product. Everything done. Real good smoky flavor. Thank you.